Ray's got a book that he brought with him, and I looked through it, and it looked pretty interesting.
I'll make mine short. Some time ago at a reunion, a gentleman apologized because he didn't do anything during World War II. He said, all I did was be an instructor. And I thought that was okay. Later, his widow sent me an obituary. The guy flew 103 missions in Vietnam. And here he was apologizing because he didn't do anything in World War II. So that got me thinking. It's time to tell the story, to keep the memory alive. So I graduated same time that Mr. Bolander did. As a matter of fact, it was just today I found out we were recalled to the same base and flew the same type of missions as training radar operators, and that's really my whole career. I did fly a short tour in the Pacific. I flew Black Widows in the Pacific, and my whole career as far as the intercept, I intercepted one airplane at night. It was a Navy R-4D. I decided not to shoot it down. I didn't think that would really be much for the service. But I did, and I will say this, I flew one mission. It was really a hair-raising mission. I lost my radio operator. What we did, there were 6 night fighter units in the Pacific at that time. 2 of them were Navy and 4 of them were Air Force or Army Air Corps. And so we did nuisance raids over Japan, 2 500-pounders every hour on a particular city just to keep the people away. Well, on this one mission that turned out to be kind of hairy, I lost my contact with my radar operator just as we hit the IP, the initial point. And all I heard was a very excited mumble over the intercom. So I should have dropped my bombs. So I dropped my bombs, turned around, headed back home. Now that was a 6-hour mission, or 6.5-hour mission. So I was tired already. And not having a navigator, I just flew a reciprocal heading home. And about halfway home, or 2/3 of the way home, I called for a DF, a direction finder, because I had to hit this little island. Well, I got a steer, and it was fine. It was about the heading I was on. And about that time, I got a call to transmit for another steer. Well, I did. They gave me a 180-degree turn. So, and thanks to the man that talked about intelligence, that really saved me a lot of grief, I guess, because I'd read an intelligence brief that the Japanese were stationing ships with English-speaking DF operators luring pilots over the ship. And of course, you give them the heading, your altitude, and they can shoot you down without any problem at all. So I didn't take the bait. I kept the heading, called for another steer, but the hard part was I also lost my IFF, which is identification, friend or foe, and they couldn't identify me. They wouldn't let me in the island ring. They told me to orbit. And no reflection on the Navy, but I think the Navy had a night fighter up that night because we didn't. They couldn't find me. 1 hour I orbited, lights on, landing lights on, screaming. Finally I said, I'm going to land or bail out, one of the two. So they said I could land. I made the approach, and a lightning flash blinded me. Well, you know, we had hooded lights. We just barely could see the runway to begin with. So I had to go around. The second time this happened, All right. The third time I remembered something that one of his fellow pilots had told me, Paul Smith, said, if you fire your upper turret, close one eye, and you won't lose your night vision. So I flew the pattern with one eye closed. A flash of lightning blinded me. I was able to open my eye and land. My engine started sputtering as I turned around. I had less than 10 gallons of fuel left. Now then, a little island, I would have had just enough power to probably get my acceleration up so I could go off the end of the runway into the coral reef. So I consider Paul actually saved my life, and the intelligence people did. Now, let me tell you about the book. A book, everybody's got a book, I guess, today, but it's really close to my heart to hear the story. This is a book that I have collected that pilots that graduated in our class in 1943E sent to me or sent to our editor of our newsletter. There's about 117 pages. I have a couple of, I did not write this, I don't claim to be the author, I was the editor. This book is going to be, all proceeds from this book will go to the Aviation Cadet Class of 43E to keep their newsletter alive. And when that is no longer necessary, it's going to the Aviation Cadet Museum in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. I brought a few of them with you. I'd like to say this, that I dedicated this to keeping the memory alive, and I think that is extremely important, that we keep the memory alive. And there were 6,000 pilots graduated in 43E. I have 253 on my roll right now. I had 14 at the last reunion, and I cannot get, but I've got about 25 to send me their story. So if you have a story, whatever source you have, put it in writing, because that's the only way our young folks will know, will understand. I'll say one other thing. I taught school, and I was teaching a vocational class, and we met on December the 7th, and I asked the students, what happened on December the 7th? And one lady said, well, that's when we attacked Japan. And I thought, really, we really need to keep the memory alive. Thanks a lot. Sorry to take your time.